Shavua Tov, everyone. Welcome to video story number 7 in our WhatsApp story group. I don't think the personalities of this story will need any introduction here. This story is from my third book, By the Light of the Full Moon, and I called it Rabbinical Dispensation. When Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu, the former chief Sephardic rabbi of Israel, was younger, he was a rabbinical judge in the south of Israel, in the rabbinical court in Beersheba. His yortzeit, by the way, is this week on Wednesday, the 25th of Sivan. And perhaps you know that here in Tzfat, his son Rabbi Shmuel has been the chief rabbi for more than 25 years. In any case, while he was working there in Beersheba, he rented a place in a private home, a room in a private home, and he would frequently go to visit Baba Sali in Nativot. Nativot is a small town near Beersheba. Baba Sali, of course, is the great Kabbalist sage and leader of Moroccan Jewry, who is held in the highest respect by everybody in Israel. Everybody went to see him, not just Sephardim, Hasidim, Ashkenazim, Zionist, religious Zionists, and even much of the population of not religious Israelis. Everybody went to see Baba Sali and to get a blessing from him. Anyway, one evening he was sitting at home, poring over Torah books, looking up laws in preparation for a case he knew he was going to have to judge the next day in the rabbinical court. Suddenly there was a knock on the door, and 2 young men entered, and they told him that Baba Sali is here in Beersheba at a celebratory meal, a mitzvah meal that is taking place in the home of the chief rabbi of Beersheba. And Baba Sali wants the Rav Mordechai Eliyahu to come and join him. So Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu told them, please convey to Baba Sali my appreciation for the invitation, but I can't possibly come. I'm in a year of mourning for my mother. And in the year of mourning, you're not supposed to join any happy celebrations. So they left. But shortly after, they came back again. They said, we told Baba Sali what you said, but he said you should come anyway. So Mordechai Eliyahu felt it wasn't proper and perhaps not even safe to disregard the Baba Sali's invitation twice. So he got up and went with the young men to the home of the chief rabbi of Beersheba. And when he entered, he saw that Baba Sali was sitting in the center of the head table. And as usual, his face was shining with light and holiness. As soon as Baba Sali saw him, he motioned for another chair to be brought, and he had it placed next to him for Rabbi Eliyahu to sit on. So he and Rabbi Eliyahu and Baba Sali talked Torah matters for a short while. And then Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu asked Baba Sali to please excuse him. He's really not supposed to be there because he's in the year of mourning for his mother, and he's extremely busy because he has to prepare for this case in rabbinical court the next day. Baba Sali just ignored what he said. It was as if he didn't hear him. He just so completely ignored him. So Rabbi Eliyahu sat there a few minutes more, and then he repeated his request and his explanation. Whereupon Baba Sali said to him, "How can you think of abandoning me here? Who am I going to speak Torah with?" So Rabbi Eliyahu sat there for a few more minutes, but this time they sat in silence, and then he repeated his request again, and again Baba Sali ignored it. So he sat back and he was wondering, why is Baba Sali being so insistent that he stay? Certainly he knows the law as well as he does about the laws of someone in a year of mourning for their parents. While he was contemplating this, the door burst open to the house and 3 policemen rushed in. And they were followed by a civilian who Rabbi Eliyahu recognized immediately as his landlord, the person in whose house he was living. And the 3 policemen and the landlord approached the head table, and And the landlord called out, "That's him, that's Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu, the man who lives in my house. The great rabbi who lives in my house." And the 3 policemen burst into big smiles. And they say, "Oh, Rabbi Kavod Rav, dear Rabbi Eliyahu, you are so fortunate. We're so happy to see you here." And Rabbi Eliyahu didn't know what was going on. He said, "What's the problem?" And they said, "Well, surely you remember that today you had a case in rabbinical court of a case of child support brought by the ex-wife against her ex-husband, and you ruled in favor of the ex-wife." Well, the husband, the father, is a well-known violent person here in Beersheba. He's especially well-known to the police. And after the verdict, a few hours later, he was heard to vow that he was going to take revenge upon each of the 3 judges. What happened? He went to the house of the first. We found out afterwards. He went to the house of the first judge, and he knocked on the door. Someone answered the door. He asked to be let in to see the judge. And when he came to the rabbi, he took out a sack he was carrying, and dumped all over his head and clothing this whole bag of dirt and mud and other extremely filthy things. And then he quickly left, and he went right to the house of the second judge. And this time he didn't bother with damaging his garment or doing something to embarrass him. He beat him up. He beat him up so badly, required medical attention. The second judge delayed being taken to the hospital because he was concerned about the other 2. The first one he called was the first judge, and he found out that unfortunately he'd already been blessed with a visit. So he called Rabbi Eliyahu's, the house Rabbi Eliyahu was staying, the days before cell phones, and there was no answer. He was told that Rabbi Eliyahu had been there and he had been learning seriously, but that he had left, and the landlord didn't know where. So the other 2 judges became very concerned, and they called the police. And the police did a basic search, and there was no trace of Rabbi Eliyahu. Nobody had seen him, and nobody knew his whereabouts. And so they started getting much more nervous, and they called the man whose house that Mordechai Eliyahu was living in, and asked him to join them in the search. So as they were driving around, all of a sudden the landlord remembered that he had heard that the chief rabbi of Beersheba was hosting a celebratory meal. And perhaps that's where Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu is. And they said, "So we came here and we found you, and you're alive and well. Thank God." So Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu thanked them for their concern, and then he turned and he stared at Baba Sali. And Baba Sali didn't say a word, but he had a little smile dancing across his holy face. And Rabbi Eliyahu understood that this smile was signifying that Baba Sali's intention, as if to say, "Well, now do you understand why it's permissible for you to be here? This isn't just a regular celebratory meal. This is your obligatory meal of Thanksgiving that you're required to participate in because you passed through a life-threatening danger."